Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, picture this scene with me. We are sitting in a very grand and honestly very tense lawyer's office for a will reading. Sitting right at the table is our narrator, Jacob Miller. He's 36 years old. And all around him, his family is literally celebrating. I mean, they're acting like they just hit the massive jackpot, counting their proverbial chickens right there in the room. But as you'll see, the mood is about to shift incredibly fast.
So here's the hook, and it is a brutal one. While the rest in Jacob's family was busy gloating over their massive, life-changing windfalls, the lawyer turned to Jacob. And right across that huge polished table, Jacob was handed a single $1 bill. $1. Just imagine the sheer weight of that moment, sitting in front of your entire family, receiving what basically feels like a finalized legal statement that you are worth practically nothing to the grandfather you loved.
And the family's reaction? It was immediate, and it was just cruel. His mother didn't offer an ounce of sympathy. Instead, she looks right at him, smirks, and actually says, "Some kids just never measure up." Ouch, right? To make matters even worse, his older brother literally laughed out loud at the table. In their eyes, that $1 bill was the ultimate proof of what they already believed, that Jacob was the family failure.
To really grasp how wild this is, you gotta look at the contrast. This wasn't some tiny estate being scraped together. To put Jacob's single dollar into perspective, his older brother received nearly $4 million in cash and property. $4 million. The disparity here wasn't just a tiny slight, it was a glaring, intentional chasm. It's the exact kind of thing that would make anyone explode in anger or just storm right out of the room.
But here's the thing. Jacob didn't yell. He didn't storm out. He simply picked up the dollar, looked his laughing brother and smirking mother dead in the eyes, and very quietly, very politely said, "Thank you." Now, why on earth would he do that? Well, because Jacob knew something that the rest of his wealthy, gloating family didn't. He knew there was one final, unopened envelope still sitting right there in the lawyer's folder.
Part 1. Keeping the store alive. To really understand Jacob's bizarre calmness here and how he even ended up at this table, we actually need to rewind. We have to look at the reality of his relationship with his grandfather, a man everyone just called Pops, and the 4 intense years leading up to this will reading. Let's go back 4 years. Jacob was living a perfectly steady, if a bit unglamorous life working as a high school history teacher. But then, the unthinkable happens. Pops suffers a bad fall. The doctors diagnose him with early-stage dementia, which meant living alone was no longer an option. So the family gets called. And wouldn't you know it, the parents and the older brother all suddenly became incredibly busy. They claimed their lives and careers were just way too demanding to help out. So Jacob stepped up. He did what nobody else would do. He actually quit his teaching job, gave up his steady life, and moved into the tiny house behind his grandfather's general store to provide full-time care.
And let me tell you, this full-time care, it was no vacation. It was an absolute grueling daily grind. Every single morning, Jacob was up opening the store at 6 a.m., exactly the way Pops had done for 50 years. He's out there stocking shelves, helping the locals, managing all the crazy paperwork and bills, and meticulously making sure Pops took his medication. And on the really bad nights, when the dementia made Pops confused and terrified, Jacob literally slept in a chair right next to his bed. He never complained, he never once asked for praise, he just put his head down and did the work.
So we have this massive, glaring divide in how the family viewed the situation. On one hand, you've got the family. They visited, maybe 3 or 4 times a year? And when they did, they never actually asked how Pops was doing. Nope, they only cared about the assets, constantly asking about the value of the land and the store. They just saw it as a business asset. But on the other hand, we have Jacob. He was in the trenches full-time. He didn't see the store as some line item on a balance sheet. He saw it as his grandfather's life's work. To him, it was the absolute beating heart of their small town.
There's this one detail from those quiet years that really stands out. Pops would often sit in his old rocking chair, just watching Jacob work, and he'd tell him, "Jacob, the one who opens the door every morning is the one who truly owns the place." Now, at the time, Jacob just thought his grandfather was being sweet, just sentimental old man talk. He totally missed the profound, literal truth of the lesson Pops was trying to lay down for him.
Which brings us to part 2, the final letter. Because eventually that 4-year journey ends. Pops passed away peacefully in his sleep. And bam, we are right back in the present day. Sitting in that stuffy lawyer's office, surrounded by the mocking laughter of a family that assumes they've won it all, while Jacob is just sitting there holding a single dollar bill.
So the family's laughter is literally echoing off the walls. And then the lawyer clears his throat. He looks up at the family and announces that there is one final handwritten letter from Mr. Miller. Not only that, but Pops had left extremely strict instructions that this specific letter had to be read aloud to everyone in the room. Talk about an instant vibe shift, right? You can just imagine the energy in the room completely freezing.
The lawyer breaks the seal on the envelope and starts reading Pops's own words. It starts like this. To my family, I have watched carefully these past 4 years. I have seen who showed up and who disappeared. Pops went on to explicitly call out everything Jacob had sacrificed. He laid it all out on the table. How Jacob gave up his career, drained his savings, and paused his own future just to take care of him and keep the store alive, turning that key at 6 every morning without ever begging for a single pat on the back.
And then comes the real emotional core of the letter. Pops wrote, "Money comes and goes, but loyalty and love are rare." That right there was the foundation of his ultimate decision. You see, Pops wasn't just old and confused. He'd been watching them with crystal clear vision. He saw exactly what his children and his older grandson truly valued. And he saw exactly what Jacob valued.
And here is the incredible payoff. Because Jacob was the one who actually kept the store breathing, Pop's final decree was monumental. Jacob didn't just get $1. He was left Miller's General Store. He was left the valuable land it sat on. He was left the house behind it. Ultimately, he was left the vast majority of the entire estate. That $4 million his brother received? Sure, it's a lot of cash, but it was just the tip of the iceberg compared to the true legacy and physical assets that were now 100% Jacob's.
The letter ends with this absolute, undeniable mic drop. Pops wrote, "The rest of you received what you truly valued, cash. Jacob received what truly matters." He finished by directly thanking Jacob for showing him what real family actually looks like, and leaving him with just one final instruction: keep the doors open.
When the lawyer finished speaking, you could hear a pin drop. The room went completely silent. That loud, mocking laughter, instantly dead. Jacob's mother, the one who just told him he never measured up, went ghost pale. His older brother, who had been laughing uncontrollably just minutes before, couldn't even lift his head. He just stared blankly at the floor. That $1 bill wasn't a punishment for Jacob at all. It was a brilliantly orchestrated setup to reveal the family's true colors for everyone to see.
Part 3. The true legacy. So, we've seen the history, we've seen this incredible, dramatic reveal, but what does all of this actually mean for Jacob today? How does a wild story like this resolve itself when the dust actually settles?
Well, it resolves exactly how Pops hoped it would. Today, Jacob still wakes up early. Every single morning at 6 a.m., that key still turns in the lock. The sign still reads Miller's General Store, and the town still comes in to get what they need. Jacob kept his promise, and every time he turns that key, he remembers the man who trusted him when absolutely no one else did. It's just such a powerful reminder that sometimes the person a family completely overlooks is the exact person who ends up carrying the real legacy forward.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want you to think about this. Have you ever been underestimated or treated like you were worth less simply because you made the hard choice to show up for someone you love? If you have, let Jacob's story be your reminder. Never, ever let the loudest people in the room convince you of your worth. Because when all is said and done, the quiet ones, the ones who just put their heads down, show up, and do the work, they are the ones who almost always write the final chapter.